Hey there, I'm Stace and I'm meal prepped. I now have 5 dinners that I can handball to hubby because this little lady is off to Bali with her girlfriends and I wanted him to be able to put good food on the table, save some cash by not just reaching for takeaway and make things easy on him. This took 2 hours and I want this for you too. So check out all the details below and let's get cooking. So good. So I'm back from the farmer's market. I shop there every Saturday with my list and I have now started laying everything out. This is just a really good tip if you want to keep your motivation high. It was also awesome if you're making up your dump bags or your meals there straight away because a lot of the produce I can just grab and start cooking with. The organic strawberries, I got a kilo of those for $5 because they're soon to turn. So I got on a meal straight away. I really recommend this. If you're going to give this a go where you start trying out a whole heap of this meal prep, get a win straight away. So gave them a quick wash and I've put some of them in a blender to make some fruit leather and the others I'm going to make into a crumble. While that's doing its thing, I start washing off my produce. And this is the fruit leather. So all I did was I blended a whole heap of those fresh strawberries. I love it with a little bit of vanilla bean. I actually teach in my fermenting course, I'll link that below, that you can actually put a bit of ferment in there of blending in a kombucha SCOBY to it. So it's a bit probiotic-y. It's really great. My oven has a dehydrator in it, so I just whack it in there. But if you don't have a dehydrator on your oven, just get on the absolute lowest temp you possibly can. The next thing I'm going to do with some strawberries is I am making up some gummies. So as I'm doing this is kind of this idea, I don't want to be like, I'm making this and I'm making this. I'm thinking about what are the things that are going to take the longest to cook, and I do those first. So obviously that dehydrated strawberry fruit leather, that's going to take like 5 to 6 hours, right? It's going to take even longer than it'll take me to do this prep. But this crumble, that's going to take a good hour. And I want to be done my prep by then, so I get it on first. How do you know to do this? Well, darling, you give these things a go, right? And you start sort of prepping this way. But mostly it's writing it down and being like, okay, what are the things that I want to cook, and then you can just start doing them in number order. Don't worry though, I've got something coming for you guys in the next few weeks that is going to really help you be able to do this for yourself. So make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube and you are following me on Insta. And the third little thing, make sure you're on Stace's email list because every Friday I send out all my tips, loads of recipes and videos like this for you to try. All right, let's talk about this crumble. So I had some sad looking apples, in they go with some rhubarb, some strawberry, and then I used some sugar and cinnamon. You'll probably notice with me, like I just use real foods. I don't really follow a specific diet. We definitely don't eat loads and loads of carbs, but we do have them. And so that's kind of the way that I cook. And that feeds into this. I started prepping those apples and I was like, I saw a great apple cake recipe that I wanted to try. Definitely all of the recipes that I cook every week are not mine. This is how I get my kind of enthusiasm and ideas of what to create is I try other people's recipes and I'm like, but if I did this with this and this and this and that, yeah. And then that's sort of how they form. So this is a great apple cake. I made it with spelt flour. I tend to use spelt flour instead of wheat flour. I don't say wheat flour, conventional wheat flour. Spelt is still a wheat. However, it's a lot easier to digest and it's higher in protein and cooks pretty much the same. So there is my gorgeous apple cake. I'm hoping that will do the babes pretty much. I've got 3 babes for the week for their lunch boxes. And now, this is so fun. The reason I wanted to try this apple cake, and I've linked it below, is they do a burnt butter icing. I'm like, what even is that? Would you look at my face here? I'm like, is that right? I need to smell this. They said it would smell nutty. It turns out it is like the most, not right now, but when I whip it, it is the most delicious icing ever. I whipped it with cream cheese. And then here is my gorgeous gummies. Do you remember I was using those strawberries? I whipped those with some Greek yogurt as an extra protein source. And now let's get in to the meal prep. So something that I don't want you guys to ever feel is that like, oh my God, do I need to go and write everything out? I have these on the computer, right? I went through and figured out what I needed to buy at the markets, but I just have my recipes sitting on my computer. Look at that face, trying to think it all through. And then I start laying everything out. So the first thing I did there, darling, is I grabbed out my dump bag. This could be in a glass container. This could be in a silicone bag. I've linked all of that below, the ones that I tend to use. I've written on there the recipe name, anything extra I need to add into it, and the cooking instructions. This will just help hubby be able to grab this stuff out and dump it in, at night. And I go ahead and I pull everything out for every recipe. I can see that this is where so many people fall down, and I want to just give you a big hug and be like, this isn't that hard if you lay it all out. So I do this you could do it for 2 recipes, you could do it for 5, but I definitely think that this speeds things up. And interestingly, and you'll see as I get on in the video, it only took me about 40 minutes to get everything together for the dinners, doing it this way. I'm big with my dump bags, and be sure to check out my slow cooker course below that I've linked. I have 4 weeks of slow cooker recipes where you can do exactly this with it. You don't have to brown everything up, right? Like I'm in the business of making real food really easy, and I don't want to be committing too much time to these things. So when I'm thinking about cooking this way, I'm like, okay, what can I have that isn't going to take too long? Here it is visually all laid out. So you can see there I've gone to the pantry. I've also gone to the fridge. I've got out my meats. I've got everything. And now I just start prepping things up. I don't have a fancy holder for my prep bags. I literally do this. I chop it and I put it in. Now, as these things go in, I do sometimes think about like, if I'm adding in grains, do they go in the bottom of the bag? Like all that stuff. To be really honest, I don't super overthink it. But this one bag, I did a little bit different. And I'm going to start with this because, after this tricky one, it gets easier. I wanted to see how a stir fry went, right? And this, again, just keep in mind, this is hubby doing it. I was very conscious that if I put it's a stir fried chicken in there, that would get really gross with the veg. They wouldn't stay crisp. So I didn't want to do that. So I actually have used a couple of bags for this very first meal. And that's something to think about too. Of course, you can do these in containers. Is that if you're making up these dump bags, don't get the thought that everything is going to absolutely turn to mush. And the texture is going to be the same. Like it's totally not. So in goes some tapioca because I want to coat the chicken to give it a gorgeous crumb when we stir fry it. And then I just chop up my chicken, whack it in that dump bag, and baby, that is done. When I'm sealing these up, see there, I kind of just go through and make sure that all of it is really well coated, and it's brilliant. So this was really fun actually, and I'm having my kids rate how these meals are on my Instagram. And a little sneak peek, they had this one last night, and I got 2 10 out of 10s and 1 9.5 out of 10, which is pretty cool. I think they love this sauce. And note here, darling, I'm whacking that sauce in the 3rd dump bag, and you'd be like, oh my God, Stace, I'm stopping this YouTube. Is this too insane? No, that is literally as hard as it gets. I'm doing this because I want to show you that my recipes, you do not have to be dumping everything in a slow cooker or everything in a pan and whacking it in the oven. Although that's really great, you might also want to have 1 or 2 meals a week that you're doing on your cooktop because you want the texture. All right, next one that I'm making, I'm so bummed that I'm not going to be eating this one, is a honey mustard tray bake. And this one is ripper that everything goes into the one bag. So I'm using veg here that I know like the babes will love. Keep in mind though, like you want to be freezing these. So the potatoes, because I haven't pre-boiled those, they could get a little bit of colour on them. Sometimes they go like a touch brown when they're frozen without like an oil on them or them being part boiled. But that's, fine to know. I'm putting on all of the sauces here so that this can literally just be dumped out and the job is done. And you see there how easy it comes together because everything is laid out and you can just be like boom, 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 boom. It's kind of cool to have it this way too because you can get others to help you with it, right? And there's no reason that when you start loving Stace's recipes that you can't make up 2 or 3 of the same bags with the exact same thing going, you know what? We're obsessed with Stace's honey mustard tray bake. Like I'm going to make up 3 of them and just have them in the freezer like to call on because, yeah, you will. All right, so the next one up, I am doing this one is my Mexican. I was just looking at that going, that looks a little bit odd. So just giving my knife a quick sharpen there. And I think about this a fair bit. I actually just bought one off Amazon of like one of those little cutters that you could use to speed these things up. Let me know in the comments, do you use them or do you kind of prep in your Thermomix all of this veg? I think that's a step further that I'd like to start taking with this. I wonder, and I definitely think as I start building this for you guys into a course, is it that you can go like, okay, we're going to have 5 onions, put one in this bag, one in this bag, one in this bag, and you've chopped them all together in a blender, which can be a good way to do it. In goes the rest of the Mexican things to my bag. See there, I've even got the rice in. Yeah, so know that you can put your grains in there. I'm also putting in all of my spices and my passata as well because I kind of want this, to be a one-stop shop. The recipes for these I've linked below. This is one off my website. And it's a really yummy like tray bake. You do serve it with cheese. So I like to put cheese on there for sort of the last 10 minutes or so and have it crisp up. If you want to get full marks, then what you could do, Dylan, is you could grate some cheese and put that like in a little container like what I did just before with the sauce. Did you see I've got some extra chicken? I'm not going to put that back in the freezer. I'm thinking ahead and going, Stace, safeguard yourself with some lunches. So I just made up a really quick yogurt Persian kind of dressing. I've done that a few weeks back as well. And I put that into a glass container and I'll be able to use that for my lunches. The next one I'm doing is sweet and sour pork as a bake. I'm chopping up the pork into thinner bits. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm starting to think through and doing some recipe development here. I love it when I can give you guys the options of buying a cut of meat differently and making it into what it is. So you might even be able to get like a neck of pork, right? Say you see that really cheap. There's no reason that you can't chop it up to be like this. You might see pork stir fry really cheap and then you could do it that way. It's good having those options. My sweet and sour pork, I make 100% from scratch there. I'm not using sweet and sour sauce. I literally use a pineapple tin to get that in with some apple cider vinegar and some tamari. That recipe, if this one is a winner, will definitely be shared with you guys soon. And now in with some onion and chicken. Did you see what I did here? And this is the thought as you're making up these dump bags, is that the sauce, I kind of wanted to get all over that chicken because I'm conscious that as these dump bags freeze or that you're putting them in the fridge, they've got time to develop their flavour, right? And where do I want most of that flavour? Well, it's over the protein. So that's why I kind of like squish it in there. Veggies go on top. Seal it up, make sure that you do not have any air in there because it will pop, sweetheart. hand up over here. I've had that happen before. And can you believe it? I'm on to my last meal. And this one is, oh my gosh, this was actually the one when I showed my husband like what he was going to be cooking while I'm away this week. He was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And they're chicken schnitzels. So I buy big chicken breasts because they're the cheapest ones to get. I'm laying out the breadcrumbs. I had a whole heap of bread that I just blended up before we went away that was turning. And so I just put that in the Thermomix for 5 minutes. That's 30 seconds or so. And I've made my own breadcrumbs. I put through salt and pepper and loads of garlic powder and Italian herbs. Put it out there on my parchment sheet. And then with the thinner bits of chicken, I just use my little basher and I bash that crumb into it. You could absolutely do this with egg, tapioca, and then breadcrumbs. I've done that in other videos, but this is just my quick way to do it. And I have made up a full kilo here of these chicken breasts doing it this way. Why? Because hubby will do these on the barbecue and then he's going to have enough for the kids' lunches. These could go into a gorgeous crispy chicken sandwich. He could chop it up with some pasta or even some salad for the kids. Look at all of those. So I've got 3 levels of them. I just fold them on up and make sure that as I'm sort of like folding those and putting them down, that they're the same width as my bag. And in it goes. I'm feeling like an absolute rock star. At the same time, off camera, I actually boiled some potatoes and hubby will be able to squash those on the barbie at the same time, and they're kind of having chicken schnitzel and chips. Look at my face with this. Oh my God, you ready to get embarrassed, Stace? No, we're all friends here. Look, oh my God, that was that burnt butter icing. I just kept the whole mouth in there. It is like so delicious. It was kind of like making a standard cream cheese icing that you would do for a carrot cake, only the butter, you'd done it as burnt butter and the flavour in it is next level. Off camera, I also made some bolognese to have for the week for lunch boxes. There's my gummies all done and I'm just pulling this together. It's like, this is the part that I kind of keeps me going, right? As you sort of get a little bit tired sometimes as you're doing this. It's just like, look at everything I made. Like, this is enough for the week. They've got lunches there, they've got dessert, they've got their fruit for crunch and sip, and they've got their veggies. So good. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 nights of dump bags for this summer for that was mammoth and so awesome. I now have 5 dinners that I can handball to hubby because this little lady is off to Bali with her girlfriends and I wanted him to be able to put good food on the table, save some cash by not just reaching for takeaway and make things easy on him because he works big hours. So make sure you're checking out my Instagram there, Stacey Claire Health Coach, because I am going to get the kids and hubby to rate each meal of how easy it is. Because babe, I've got something really cool coming that you'll be able to follow. I've also done some other things. I've got some stuff for the lunch boxes. Oh my gosh, the cake and that icing is next level. But I've done some bolognese too, so that hubby can grab that with some pasta, whack in some thermoses, and that is lunch boxes done for the week. And I tell you, I think the thing I'm most excited for is this stewed strawberry, apple, and rhubarb. Oh my goodness. Make sure you're subscribed and check over with me on Instagram of how it went with kids. And let me know below. Do you like cooking like this? Would you like some help? Do you want a plan to follow? I'd love to hear. See you on the next one. And now's the joy of putting everything away in the fridge. Look at that clear shelf that I could get everything into. Be sure to like and subscribe and make sure you're following along on Insta to see what the family thinks of all the recipes.